This video is sponsored by Film Clothing. Recently, I've been traveling a lot for work, and on these trips, I like to bring with me a small point-and-shoot style camera to just, pop off a few images as I go about my travels. And I finally feel like I found an ideal workflow that works really well for me and doesn't slow me down. I have to go catch a plane to New York City, but once we arrive and catch up with my buddy Luke, I'll walk you through why I went with this specific camera and lens setup over some other popular options out there. I'll walk you through my settings in the camera, the different film simulations that I like to use, and finally I'll show you how I transfer and edit them on the go. It's gonna be a good one. I'm excited. Let's go catch a plane. So let's talk a little bit about the camera setup itself. This is the Fujifilm XT5. It's paired right now with the 27mm pancake lens, and this little combo right here is my ideal travel photography point and shoot setup. But why did I go with the XT5 specifically? Well, 3 reasons. The first thing was that I wanted a camera that was going to be able to take high resolution shots of my film negatives to scan them in and then edit them for, posting online. The second thing is I wanted something that was an inexpensive, I could easily and would want to reach for it, kind of a point and shoot style setup that I could take with me on travel trips or trips like we're on right now to New York City, and I could just carry around a camera, take some banger shots, and not have to worry about a huge bulky camera setup. The XT5 is nearly identical in terms of weight and size to the X100 5 and 6. It's also got the exact same Fujifilm film simulations built right into the camera, and it's also got a great app and smartphone compatibility when it comes to transferring your images, which we'll get into a little bit later in the video. And third and finally was really just flexibility for professional events or shoots. The XT5 has a native X mount in the camera, but there are plenty of different adapters so you can adapt your favorite lenses to your camera. So in theory, all of those things are nice, they're sexy, they sound cool to say, but what is it actually like to shoot with how I usually have this setup, with the 27mm pancake on this camera? Now, the 27mm, it's not the best lens in the world, but it is certainly one of the smallest, and I definitely have a priority in terms of weight and size when it comes to just having a camera on my side, especially walking around a place like New York City. The photos that you're able to get with this camera and a lens like, say, the 27mm are so great. Maybe it's not the sharpest lens in the world. It's definitely got its downfalls. It's also not the fastest, but I mean, if you're just trying to get some quick shots of family, fun, friends, whatever, just living life, making memories, it's really hard for me to justify buying something that's not this camera. Okay, so we've talked about the camera. Let's talk a little bit about the settings. So you can actually apply a lot of these settings to other Fujifilm cameras if you have them, not just this setup. Image size, I keep this at 3:2. Image quality, I'm just shooting JPEGs for funsies. Raw recording, if I do shoot raw, I'll leave this on uncompressed. I shoot JPEGs. Film simulation, I'm either on nostalgic negative or I will switch over to Pro Neg High, depending on what kind of situation I'm in, or honestly, just how I'm feeling. Grain effect, I like to go with strong and large. I like to have a bit of grain in these pictures. Color chrome effect, I'll keep this on strong. Color chrome effects blue, I will usually keep this on weak, or if I'm shooting at night, I will tend to turn this off because the sky can sometimes get a little blue if you do leave it on weak or strong. Smooth skin effect I've got on weak. White balance, I have it on auto, but I do have custom color shifting for 1 positive red and -4 for blue. Dynamic range priority, I leave this on auto. Color, I've got +3, sharpness 0. These next two, high ISO noise reduction and clarity, these ones actually affect the speed in which your camera processes images. So if you're shooting in a bright sunny day, leave your high ISO noise reduction at -4. You don't need it. Clarity, I pretty much leave this at 0 all the time anyway. The only time I would change one of these settings, say high ISO noise reduction, is if you're shooting at night and you're at a high ISO and you need a little bit of noise reduction to clean up your image. The rest of the settings I don't actually touch. You can copy them if you really want to, but I don't really mess around with those. So before we move on, I wanted to take a few seconds to talk about today's sponsor, Film Clothing. Film Clothing is a workwear company. They make products for filmmakers and with filmmakers in mind. The first product that they made and released, which is the hat that you see on my head, literally sold out within days of posting it online and on social media. They've partnered with me on this video to first let you know that more hats are in stock right now, so act fast if you want one, as well as offer you 10% off your first order. Now, I'm a sucker for a good hat, and I'm also a hard sell, so if a hat doesn't fit well or look good, I'm probably not gonna buy it. Thankfully, this hat does both, as well as being water resistant, made out of really great materials, and it's really breathable. Not only that, it's super comfortable, and it's got a customizable patch in the front, so you could swap it out with one of your own patches or one of the other ones that they sell on their site. Thank you again to Film Clothing for sponsoring this video. If you do want a hat, make sure you act fast because they go quick. Use the link in my description and use the code Hartman10 at checkout for 10% off your first order. Now back to the video. So the last part of this setup that really makes this my ideal travel photography workflow is the transferring and the editing process that I use on these photos. I can pop open the app after registering the camera to my phone and just quickly download the images from my camera without having to plug in anything. During some downtime, I find that is the best opportunity to just download and edit some of the photos that I've taken on a trip or during an event. Now, a lot of people get the Fujifilm cameras so you don't have to edit the pictures. You know, you get the nice Fujifilm film simulation going on. But sometimes to me, it's just not enough. You know, I just need like a little bit more from some of these pictures to really make them sing and to make them pop. So instead of using something like the Photos app to just adjust, or Lightroom, which sometimes can just get a little clunky and overbearing, I like to use Dehancer. I don't like to spend a ton of time in Dehancer or on my phone editing these photos because I feel like it kind of defeats the purpose of being fast and nimble. So I have a preset that I use for pretty much every single picture that I load through Dehancer on my phone. It's called Compression Print. It's just something that I made up. It adds a little bit of grain, halation, bloom, compression, and some nice filmic colors. Let's rebuild this preset so that you can use it for yourself if you're interested. So first we'll turn on compression. I like these settings. The impact just changes how much of it's actually impacting the highlights. I leave mine around 45. The white point changes the white point of the image. I like to push mine up a little bit so that it brings the white point down to say like 102 or 103. The tonal range, I like to go from like 60 to 50, somewhere in between there. And then the color density, I usually just leave kind of stock at 50. That looks pretty good to me. The next thing that I do is I add a print film emulation. I like to use the Kodak 2383 print film. Here are the settings that I like. I have my tonal contrast dialed back a little bit, and then I've pushed the color density up. That's it. I don't mess around with this because the colors and the contrast usually just look super good. Next, we're adding halation to the image. I do not like to overdo halation because it ends up looking really cheap really quickly, but here are the settings that I like for my halation. Next, I like to add some bloom. Bloom just adds a little bit of bloom to the highlights and the bright parts of the image, makes it a little softer, and it just gives a really just wonderful aesthetic to the image. And the last thing that I add is this vignette. It just adds a little bit of vignetting to the sides of the image. And that's the preset that I like to use when I take photos on my Fujifilm camera, put them into my phone, and upload them to social media. Using this setup for the past year or so has been really fun. I've taken a lot of photos and I've brought this camera to a lot of different places and just taken some fun, weird photos of my family, friends, and the places that I've been. If you're looking for something like this and you are in a similar sort of, plane of life as me, and you want something that's a little bit more flexible or is currently available that you could go buy right now if you wanted to, 100%, I absolutely recommend you check out the Fujifilm XT5 and the different lenses that you can get with this camera. Anyways, if you have any questions or comments about the things that you saw in this video, feel free to drop a comment. I try to respond to everything that comes through. If you like this video or you like videos like this or are looking for more content related to the filmmaking or creative space, consider subscribing. I hope you enjoyed this video. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.